in Enlightened Conversations, episode 22, and here's your host, Lisa Smith.
Good evening, everybody. I can't believe this is episode 22. We've been at this that long. So today is February 28th, 2023, and we're coming to you with an episode tonight on Black History Month, here on the very last day of Black History Month in 2023. I wanted to talk tonight about Black history, not just because this is the month to celebrate that. In my personal opinion, we should be celebrating this all the time. Most of our history books, if you recall what you looked at in your history books way back in school, they give us only one side of the story, only the view from the white male landowner, which to me is like reading a great novel and skipping every third chapter and then trying to figure out what happened in between when you didn't have the whole story. Because without knowing Black history, and indeed women's history, we don't fully know our country's history, because our country was dependent on the lives of all of its inhabitants, not just the white male landowners that we read about. And that's why Black History Month is so important and should be marked not just in February, the shortest month of the year, but throughout the year, so that we get a deeper appreciation of what this country's all about. Tonight, we're going to hear some of what this is all about from Mayor Rita Frealing from Gettysburg. Rita was born near Gettysburg, and she's now a borough resident. We were talking prior to going on air, and Rita has had quite a long list of activities in her past. Much like me, she's taken on quite a few different jobs, and we kind of chuckled about the fact that her last job prior to becoming mayor was selling cosmetics. This is what happens when we retire. We get involved in all kinds of things. But she was the director of public liaison for Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education at one time. And while in that capacity, she helped organize the first system-wide student LGBTQ conference. She was director of communications for the Pennsylvania Department of Public Welfare, director of the Dauphin County Domestic Relations. She served as chief legal counsel and legislative director for Pennsylvania Senator Vincent Hughes, was a deputy press secretary for Governor Bob Casey, worked in the governor's policy office, and was a director of governmental relations for the Pennsylvania State Department of Ed. She also served on the board of the Greater Harrisburg NAACP, worked as a news reporter for WTPA Radio and TV, for WHP Channel 21, and as a weekend news anchor for WGET Radio in Gettysburg. So she knows her way around a microphone. Rita is a graduate of St. Francis Xavier School in Gettysburg, she proudly says, and also Gettysburg High School, Penn State University, and Penn State Dickinson Law School. And these days is most often found in the mayor's seat at Gettysburg Borough. So Rita, welcome to Enlightened Conversations. Rita just had a very interesting experience yesterday in having the opportunity to celebrate Black History Month at the White House. We didn't all get an invitation, but Rita did. So start us off tonight, Rita, by explaining to us what was this like and how did the White House mark Black History Month? I didn't see anything on the news today covering this celebration at the White House.
Well, I saw something that was on a Los Angeles television station. So that's the beauty of technology. And if you go to the White House, you can see the president's comments that it is on. And what it was, the president and Joe Biden, it was a celebration in honor of Black History Month. And it was in the East Wing of the White House. And it started off with a student introducing the vice president, Kamala Harris, who spoke, and then President Biden spoke. And it was more or less, especially Kamala Harris, it is about history. It's our history. It's all of us. We should not rewrite history, which sometimes people try to do. It's history as we all have experienced, and it's who we are and how we got here. And it's not about covering up the blemishes, because there are blemishes there, but it's also about the blemishes, warts and all, but also the great things that happen that sometimes are overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
I have to say this, and yes, history books are written a certain way, but I always point this out, and I hope he's listening. Terry Fox, my high school history teacher, was excellent. He really, in a way, taught inclusive history at that time.
Wow.
Yeah, about
That's
the night.
unusual. Yeah.
He was something. He also taught us when I was sitting in Gettysburg High School, which is right down the hill from me now.
Mm-hmm.
He said, look out your window. You're sitting on one of the most well-known battlefields in the world, and most people will not explore it. He was one of the people why I got involved in the battle and also became a seasonal park ranger when I was in college and law school, because
Mm-hmm.
it's out there. And he said, really learn about what happened here. Excellent
Yeah.
high school teacher, but I know everybody doesn't have that experience, because I've spoken to some of my in-laws who had what you talked about. They said, we didn't know all these things happened that involved African-American women. We just thought it was about the Pilgrims and Thanksgiving. So it
Right.
just depends on where you are. And I mean, that really hit it home for me. And we talked about that, and I talked to other people about it. But I think it should be everyone's story and backed up by facts. And it's just very interesting. So yes, it's a good thing to have Black History Month, but I agree with you. This is our history, and it's every day of the year. It's about what's past, and it's also about the history we're making every day. And
Right.
that's from everybody's story. Because I think that's interesting. Some people just stop during certain times, but it's history that goes throughout.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was with the LGBTQIA, that's what it was when I did it. I was in charge of dealing with the students, the student government presidents. So why not all students? And my boss, who was
Exactly.
another person, he said, we're going to do this. And another professor, Mark Ussery, we decided, and we did it because it's about all of us
Right. Yeah. And it's that
having a
way
voice.
when you're talking about history, or whether you're talking about creating an event like last night at the White House. Unless you do something that involves all of us, it's no good for any of us. You know,
Right, and
it's
you learn
either all of us together or nobody, you know?
Right. And one of the things they were talking about, and I'll say this, but I'll do the challenge, anybody can look it up. One of the things the president was speaking about last night was the Divine Nine.
Divine Nine. What
See,
is that?
they're the Black sororities, and 9 Black sororities in our country. From
Okay.
they started, and they have a lot of power in this country, and a lot of people are members or have been members in history, and they talked about the influence of the Divine Nine. So you can look that up and study that.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm always looking for new things to delve into. So that would definitely be a good one. How many people were there last night? Was it
Mary asked me
large?
about hundreds. I would
Oh,
say under
really? That's
300. I'm not a
great.
good crowd estimate, but no, it was nice. And there was a lot of Greeks, Black Greek fraternities,
Right.
and sororities, that's Divine Nine. And just people, like I met somebody from the Treasury Department. I met people from all over Los Angeles. There's people who had private businesses, this or that. Somebody was involved with the president's inauguration. Her husband was one of the preachers there. And of course, I said, you have to come visit Gettysburg or surrounding area, because we're very nice people and we
Yes,
like visitors.
we
So it was
certainly are.
a good event. And I was just, at one point, I was humble. And I know people say that, but I was just sitting there and I almost started to cry thinking, I can't believe I'm in the East Wing of the White House,
Right.
representing my lovely hometown.
Mm-hmm.
What an honor.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It kind of makes you stop and think sometimes about all of the people that are involved in something like that. Every one of them is there representing some hometown, you
Mhm.
know. No one was born into that east wing of the White House, at least not to my knowledge was anybody ever born there. Everybody comes from somewhere. And that's really what the whole history thing is about. Where did we come from? What small town, what small village, did each of us come from, and what did we contribute along the way? And that's how we got from the very beginning to where we are today. Why is someone, when they produced a textbook, or someone because they sit in a governor's seat today, decides that the stories we're going to tell are only going to reflect certain people? I can't understand that, why it should only reflect certain people. There's a lot of people, a lot of stories to be told. And when you blend them all together, you get the full picture of what the beauty of this country really is.
I agree. It's a tapestry.
It really is. It really is. People talk about the melting pot that America is. And I heard someone one time describe it, that the melting pot really is not a good description of America, that if you took all the crayons in your crayon box and melted them, you'd end up with a muddy glob. But if you took them all together and put down one stroke, one little stripe for each one of them and wove those together, you'd have something really beautiful. So it's not a matter so much of melding everything that we have, but weaving it all together, because we each bring something unique and different to it. I want to talk a little bit about one unique thing that you bring to the story, and that is that rich background that I read through. And I have to share with our guests, I only read part of your resume, of the various jobs that you've held. How did you come from all of that to be sitting in the mayor's seat in Gettysburg? What happened along the way that made you decide to run for mayor?
Two things.
Okay.
And I tell everybody this. When I was little, growing up outside of Gettysburg, and I was only about 2 miles outside of Gettysburg. I grew up actually on the battlefield, on the Tawny Town Road. I always wanted to be mayor.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Since I was a child, I wanted to be mayor of Gettysburg or president in the United States. I aim high.
Yeah.
Anyway. But and my friends throughout my life, and especially a lot of my high school friends here in Gettysburg and people I know, they used to always look at me throughout my life and said, you should run for office. And I was like busy doing other things. And I was like, no, it's not time yet. But then the time presented itself and I ran for office.
Right.
And it was for mayor of Gettysburg. So that's how I ended up here. But it's kind of always been, I studied political science in college. And I always say this, I remember watching Huntley Brinkley. Anybody's
I remember them.
Mm-hmm. With my father.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was just always kind of ingrained in me. And I just enjoy politics and working in it and being involved. And it's also helping to represent your community and doing your public service. And as I said during my campaign, this community molded me. And yes, there were bad times too, but it still made me the person I am. And it's time to give back.
Mm-hmm.
We all have to give back.
Absolutely. Yeah, we definitely do. Was it a difficult decision to reach? Or did you just suddenly one day say, nah, okay, the time is right?
No, people had been telling me, and my aunt, who I took care of, who had Alzheimer's, she kept telling me for years, you should be mayor of Gettysburg. She passed away, and I was living in her house and a town resident at the time. And my husband and I were reading the Gettysburg Times. And I thought, it was all the mayor's race was. And I said, I'm going to run for mayor. So I started, he became my campaign manager. And this is a classic. A couple months later, we were sitting around the kitchen table. And I said, Eric, I did forget one thing. I didn't ask you if I should run. And I don't know if this is what you signed up for when you married me. Yeah. And he just looked at me and said, whatever you want, Rita.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think he would have signed on as campaign manager if he really had strong objections.
I would think so, but he didn't.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if he did that or I told him to. No.
Yeah. What kind of obstacles did you run into in your campaign? I mean, obviously, I think pretty much everybody who runs for a small town office, there's the whole issue of raising money and raising awareness. But did you find it more difficult, or did you run into more problems, you think, because of race? Or was that kind of a non-factor?
To me, it was a non-factor because it's probably just the way I think. I'm sure it's out there, and I'm sure it was coming from different places, but it was about running an efficient campaign, knowing how to run a campaign, knowing the biggest thing is knowing Pennsylvania election law. And I
Mhm.
guess I'm sure there were people who were like saying, well, she's going to be this, she's going to be that. Look, judge me for me. And also people were like, well, you shouldn't talk to this person or that person. I make my own opinions. I like to
Mhm.
meet people and I judge them on that. I think the most difficult thing, fundraising wasn't that hard, but just following the campaign law and the biggest obstacle, going out, I love going out and talking to people. Okay, there were two. Campaigning during COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Think door to door is a very big part of campaigns. You couldn't go door to door, I felt, with COVID, because I
Right.
don't know what I'm bringing in and I don't know what I'm taking out, and then I'm going to somebody else's house. And a lot of my friends, when I was getting my petition signed, even to get the signatures I needed to get on the ballot, people I knew, when I knocked on their door, you should have seen the way they looked at me like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
So that obstacle I came out with, this is my idea, and I think a lot of other people, I said, you tell 10 people, they tell 10 people. I'll talk to you, you talk to 10 of your friends, tell them why they should support me, and I'll come and talk to them if I went. And we kind of did it that way. And I do have to say the other really, I don't know if it was an obstacle, but it was a punch in my stomach when my husband died right in the middle of it.
Oh,
He died
yeah.
after the primary and before I went into the general. I was
Yeah.
just shocked.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I sat there because people said, are you going to continue to run? And I was like, I made a commitment and the people made a commitment to me by helping me win the primary. So off we went.
Yeah.
But yeah, fundraising is interesting, but I think it's just being consistent, getting your message out. And with anything, there are going to be negative people. You have to focus. Keep your eye on the prize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well, what
I had people say negative things to me, and I was like, well, people have told me before in my life, you can't do that. I was told I would never be a lawyer. I was like, fine, watch.
right,
Yeah. So, you
right.
just keep going on, surround yourself with the positive people, but also acknowledge that the negatives are out there and figure out how to overcome that.
How to work around them, right? Yeah.
One of my
What?
jobs that was really funny, they said, I'll never forget this job in my interview. They said, if you're going in a path and you're going straight, what happens if you hit an obstacle? What do you do? And I said, well, I'm not going to stop. You go this way, or you go up, and you go back, and then you figure out how to get there. And they said, you
Mhm.
have the job.
Yeah. Yep. There's always a way around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What election was this? What year were you elected?
Oh, I've only been here a year.
Okay.
So it would have been, what was it? I'm not good at years. COVID made all the years. We were talking about
I
that.
know
Made
they
all
all
the years.
blurred
They
together
all
after a
blurred
while.
together. Okay, my first year. So this is 23, 22. That has to be right, 21. Yeah.
Okay, so fall of 21. All right.
Mhm.
And
I
and
watch people saying you're not right, but go ahead.
how long is the term for mayor?
It is 4 years.
Okay. All right. So you have obviously the opportunity to keep going. I know in Hanover, we had Mayor Maggie Hormel. When I first became aware well, no, not when I first became aware of who mayor was, because I do remember Mayor Adelsberger before that, but then she followed Mayor Adelsberger. And I think Mayor Maggie was mayor for, oh heavens, I don't know how many times. We just kept electing her. We loved her. We kept electing her. And then unfortunately she passed away. But I think that happens frequently with small town mayors. We just, people get elected, they do a good job, we just keep them. Is this something that you think you might want to, keep doing? Staying in?
People ask me that, and yes, many want me to keep doing it, but it's one day at a time. First thing I have to do is focus on doing the job I'm here for, and
Right.
then keep seeing what happens and what life brings. But I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now. And people have asked, and I can say, I don't know, because I have to focus on what I'm doing now. And 3 or 4 years is a long time. And we'll just wait and see what happens.
Right. Yeah.
At least that's the way I look at it. It's my mother, and focus on the task at hand.
Yep. Yep.
So, I mean, and I
maybe-
love it. And if it comes to fruition that I'm here for another 4 years, that'll be fine. But we have to see what life brings, because life can throw you interesting
yeah.
things.
Yeah. It can throw some curveballs.
Mhm,
You obviously are the first mayor of color
mhm.
in Gettysburg. And I think if I recall from a previous conversation with you, you've had at least one other first that I'm aware of went during your years at Penn State. If I remember right, yeah, you told me you were the first or one of the first, the fourth Black cheerleader at Penn State. Is
Well, I
that
didn't know about the twins. The twins were there. And they
okay?
were before Lorraine. So there were the twins, Lorraine, and then me.
Okay. All right. So
Yes.
you were the fourth.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
thought it was the second. No, I'm not the first. No, second.
Okay. All right. I
And then
gave
my
you that
roommate was
title
the fourth. Yeah, but
mistakenly. Yeah.
but it was difficult. And people like look at me and they said, well, what is that? That's a hard gig to get. And I'm
Yeah.
not talking about it. First, they couldn't do that now. We had to make weight. We had to make a certain weight for a certain
Mhm.
height. And I mean, I exercised, lifted weights, ran 10 miles every morning. It's work.
It is work.
And a
Yeah.
lot of people said that you can never be a Penn State cheerleader. Once again, I was like, well, watch.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work, but it was a very enjoyable experience. And it teaches you leadership skills and also team building.
Mhm.
Because when somebody's throwing, and also trust, when somebody's tossing you up in the air and you're flying around, you better make sure they're there to catch you when you're on your way down.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Mhm.
And now, did you run into racial issues as a student at Penn State?
Yes.
Yeah.
And as a cheerleader, I remember going to a game in another state who will remain nameless, seeing people with black rubber masks on their face. I was like,
Oh,
I don't know
good
if I want to
heavens.
be. Yeah. It was like, this is kind of a little weird for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
it's just, yes, you do have, it's all for all of us. And this is why we need to talk more and be aware. It's
Mhm.
always going to be an issue for some people.
Yeah.
And even me being a woman, like you can't do this. I like when some man was telling me one day, he was talking to me in front of anybody else, and he said, look at her, she's trying to use what side we're not supposed to use. Look, she's trying to use her little right side of her brain.
Oh my heavens.
Another time I was going into an office at the state, and I walked in and asked what I wanted to ask, and this other lobbyist was there and looked at me and said, you're a pushy little broad. This was years ago.
Ooh.
And I said, but if I was a man, you would say I was aggressive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, so you go on, and it's not, and you have to, I think, I don't have to agree with them, but that's some people's perspective, but it doesn't have to define me, or should it define anybody else?
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree, but that's the way I feel.
Yeah.
And you can
No.
also, and it doesn't have to be people outside. Sometimes it's the people you consider friends or whatever. They'll just say things, and it's like,
Well, and it does put you in a difficult spot when that kind of stuff comes out, because oftentimes you're caught by surprise, and knowing how to respond can be really tricky, and knowing exactly what to say. And I like your approach of just rising above it and moving on,
sometimes that's
although,
hard.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sometimes that's hard.
I think
But-
it's very hard. And I also sometimes question myself as to why did I not take that teachable moment and do something with it? But then again,
You can't teach everybody.
yeah, there's some people who are unteachable. So
Because they'll come back and say the same thing, and I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, because you just don't know
It's the way they
whether
are.
what's the
But I just think we've come a long way, and there's a long way to go. And I encourage anybody who's out there, Well, we have males, but still, I'm not gonna like say males don't get involved with public office. Everybody do. Go to your commission meetings, your board meetings, volunteer in groups around your town, make your voice heard. And this is the way we all come together, because sometimes it's hard to get people involved because we're all tied up in, well, life goes on and we all have things to do. Like I couldn't have gotten involved when I was taking care of my aunt. That was a full-time job.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I think people should try to get involved and lead by example, which is hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because look, I have my days, as we all do.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but I mean,
what's the racial climate like in Gettysburg? How would you describe that?
well, it depends on who you talk to.
Okay.
And I don't mean, I'm not avoiding the question. It depends on who you talk to. Some people feel it's fine. Some people think we have a long way to go. Some people, just like I was talking to somebody made a really odd comment to me last night about our previous history in Gettysburg. And another friend of mine, when we were talking about it, said about bigotry as we knew it then and as we know it now. It's going to be here. And sometimes the people who don't think they're being bigoted are sometimes the most. It's amazing, but it's something you have to do and tolerate and get through. And I think it depends on who you talk to, what our current racial climate is. Because I know I spoke with people during elections saying that, well, this isn't right and this happens and that happens. Then I still hear it. And it's something I have to deal with every day. And you can work with different groups like the Y. We have a Y here. That can work on that. We have some kind, which we need to get back together, commissions with people talking with different law enforcement agencies here, but you have to know your town. And then we have town gown relationships. We're opening an African-American history museum.
Right.
And I just think it depends on who you talk to, but you have to listen to people and address their concerns. If anybody comes to me and they feel there's a race issue, I listen to them and try to figure out a way to bring people together. I can't fix it. Everybody in the community is going to have to fix it.
Right.
And come together and listen. I do not have a magic wand that I can wave and everything's going to be all right. We do have issues. My race issues, I would think, and this is for everyone, but it's also our area. Jobs,
right,
affordable housing. I mean, it could be like, well, I don't like their attitude towards me or whatever, but these are the things I think matter. Where you live, how you live, and what kind of wage do you have?
Right.
That says a lot for women too. And I think these are some issues that need to be addressed. And also, of course, how we address each other, which I told you, people sometimes say things to me. I'm like, don't talk to me that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes it just could be people's manner. I have to ask, how do you feel race relations are in Gettysburg and Hanover?
My impression, and I say this as someone who lives in Hanover but likes to visit Gettysburg, I've always been of the impression that things were better in Gettysburg than they are in Hanover. Now, what do I base that on? I'm not certain. I think maybe perhaps because there's a college in Gettysburg, because there are more people of color in Gettysburg. If I go to a Gettysburg restaurant or go to an event there, I see a broader variety of people in Gettysburg. So my assumption as an old white woman is that, oh, good, things must be better here because I'm seeing a broader diversity of people. Whereas in Hanover, I don't see as much diversity. And my first thought is, why are people not comfortable being here?
Well, you see, you just said that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I mean, that's just, looking at it through these eyes.
Oh, that was so funny. I was sitting in a diner and I was going to an event at the local theater here. Somebody turned and looked at me and said she had out of town guests come here to Gettysburg, and they felt very uncomfortable at this event because they didn't see enough people of color. It's perception.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that happened to me, and I felt like I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
So it's perception. I think a lot of
Mhm.
it, and I mean, a lot of it could be reality, but you just said that, and that's the flip side of that.
Yeah.
They said they
Yeah.
didn't feel comfortable. And I have friends from college, my Penn State College friends, they come to Gettysburg and visit as my African-American friends. And yeah, they tell me when they don't feel comfortable here. So I listen, I
Because,
have a lot of, and
yeah.
they have no reason. I've known them for years. And they said they
Mhm.
can tell when they go places and they're not welcome. I was like, interesting.
Yeah. That is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's something I may not pick up because, oh, I know, here we go. Somebody was talking about this whole perception of not having more diversity at cultural events. They turned around and looked at me and they said, well, you wouldn't notice because you were born here. That's what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. That's odd.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think as we all work together, and I think that, I think it says a lot for Gettysburg, and I'm not going to overlook this fact, and it's not my ego, that I was elected mayor, and that was by a lot of people.
Right. Yeah.
Speaks volumes of our town.
Yeah. I think too it does. I think too it does. And I think it says a lot for the times that we're living in. I'm not sure that would have occurred 30 years ago, but I don't know. Maybe, you know.
I don't know
I-
either, and I'd be guesstimating. The only thing I know is what's here and what's now.
Right.
And this is the
Yeah.
time, and we
It's
move
hard
on.
to say.
Yeah,
It's hard to say.
who knows what will happen? And as I said, but I am just very proud because a lot of people, and they know this, I love this town. It is my heart.
Yeah.
And even when I was at Penn State or working in Philadelphia, and I have the best story, I love this. I was like, I'm from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And they were like, you're really proud of it. And I said, I am. Now, when I was in high school, I had the opportunity to be a foreign exchange student.
Oh,
And I lived in Istanbul, Turkey.
no
And
kidding.
yeah. So anyway, merhaba. Anyway, it was, everybody was like, well, you're from Gettysburg. Everybody will know Gettysburg, blah, blah, blah. So I'm in Istanbul. And I'm like, well, I'm from Gettysburg and Gettysburg. And they were looking at me. New York, maybe, Philadelphia, maybe, of all places, the family I knew. And I was like saying Pennsylvania, and they looked at me and said, everybody get ready for this. Biglerville. They knew Biglerville. Applesauce.
Oh my heavens.
Musselman.
That was their only
And that's what I
connection.
remember, but they knew Biglerville. One of them, I was like,
Wow.
and that's
Wow.
why I remember it. Anybody can question, fact check me. I know what the people said. I was like amazed. Of all places, Biglerville.
Yeah.
So you
That's
see,
amazing.
it is amazing. We each have our little spot in the sun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they
But
didn't
anyway.
know our history, but they know our applesauce, you know?
Well, that was a family I was with, and it just amazed
Yeah,
me.
that's funny.
Yeah.
Um,
But anyway, and I love Gettysburg, and I always talk it up. And also some Hanover, the shoe farms. I love
mhm.
this here. I love Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's good. How could someone serve as a mayor of a community that they are not enamored with? I mean, there's so much work involved in running a town, whether it's a town the size of Gettysburg or a town the size of New York City. How could you possibly take on that job if you didn't love that community, you know?
I love our history.
Mm-hmm.
I love the people here. And also, when I was a park ranger, I played in Living History. It was called Women in the War, and I portrayed Basil Biggs' wife, Mary. There's a
Mm-hmm.
rich history here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's just,
So,
I don't know if I believe in fate or whatever, like they said in Forrest Gump, but right now I'm where I'm supposed to be and I'm happy. Sometimes it can be, and that's real, it can be discouraging because there are certain things that happen in any job I had. there are certain things that just break your heart, but you have to figure out how to go on and how to help people.
Right, right. Absolutely. What do you think is the next big step for us as a country in dealing with the racial issues that we have? How would, if you were not mayor of Gettysburg, if you could swap places with Joe Biden or Kamala Harris?
I'm
Yeah,
happy to be mayor of Gettysburg.
yeah.
Because on top
But
of race, look at the other things that they're dealing with.
right,
With
right.
one little piece of the puzzle. No, I think what it is, and I don't want to sound like a Pollyanna, it's open heart, open mind, but you have to open your mind. Be you a conservative or a liberal, a Democrat or a Republican, take the blinders off and open your eyes and your mind, because we're in this together.
Yeah,
And you just don't assume things. I was like that. You just don't assume because a person's labeled. That's labeling people. Get to know that person and what they think and how they feel.
that's a very difficult thing these days to
I
get
know.
people to do that.
I know. I'm amazed because
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Yeah. And
But
I wonder if it has something to do with the short attention span we all have. That
I think it's a short
become
attention span,
easier.
and we can pick and choose. Because I even look on my cell phone, it pops up things I want to see. And
Mhm.
I'm getting one view, and I tried to stop that. I want to see a lot of different views.
Right. Yeah.
And also, all right, read more. Read more.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's just so
Absolutely.
easy. And I don't know, and this is a peeve of mine, and I said it once here. I don't like when I'm on the phone talking to my friends and I say something and they say, well, let me fact check you.
Oh my heavens.
There goes our conversation. Listen, people are doing it when you're on the phone. And then they'll start talking. Well, I read this. I'm like, wait, we're not having a conversation.
No. Wow.
And have you noticed, I don't know this, and maybe I stopped going to, I went to a gathering, it was years ago. It was some kind of like a picnic or something. Everybody was on their cell phones.
Oh,
Nobody was
yes.
interacting. They were
Mm-hmm.
texting, and I was like, I'm going home.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know, and but you can't just pinpoint one thing. I think, and that's another fault, is when you try to pinpoint one thing as the source. It's a lot of things, but I think
Right.
it's just talking to people, interacting face to face. I prefer to interact face to face with people,
Mm-hmm.
because when I'm
Yeah.
texting you or you're texting me, I can't really get a feeling for what you're feeling or what you're trying to express.
Right. Yeah. Even just by email, things can be misconstrued
Well,
very
yeah,
easily. Yeah.
and I'm LOL.
Yeah.
You are? I don't
Yeah.
know, but I just like interacting with people and getting out there. And if anybody, well, I know there are people listening, let's hear what you think. Because one of the things I ran was, you talk, I listen. I
Mhm.
don't have all the answers, but I bet you one way I can figure out some is to again bring people together and listen to what they have to say.
Right. Right.
Because people who suddenly think they have all the answers, they're the people that make me run.
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
we all have to collaborate and get consensus.
Right. Absolutely. Speaking of those who are listening, Lou, do we have questions or comments yet?
We do not.
Oh, okay.
Everybody's listening intently.
Okay. All right. So it's been a quiet evening. Well, that happens from time to time. We have found with our conversations, Rita, just to let you know, that quite often the bulk of the impact from our live Facebook conversations comes later during the time that it's posted. So, and in fact, Lou just informed me the other day, I guess maybe it was a week or two ago, that last year we had over 8,000 visits to our YouTube recordings of these conversations. So people are listening. I wish they'd dialogue, but they do listen. So I wish
That's
they
the
would.
first thing, and they will dialogue, and we have to tell everybody, oh, I'm not really a Facebook person.
Yeah.
Well, what happens was when Facebook first came out, I would sit down and like do conversations and then look up and 4 hours were gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's limit this for a while.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard. It's
Yeah,
kind
but
of
it's
hard.
enjoyable to see like what are people doing and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I'm more of a talker and I like to go out and interact with people.
Mm-hmm. It is
And
a
if you
good way
see
to
me,
capture history, though. It is a good way to capture history as it's happening.
well,
I
yeah, and
like.
also to talk to people and get their perspective of history in Gettysburg and what was and what wasn't. And it's
Mhm.
just interesting. And you just said that. I just like, oh, and I will tell anybody this, if you see me out in Gettysburg, if I have a baseball cap on, I'm going incognito, but it's still me. Say hello. I just met a wonderful couple that moved here from Texas the other night.
Really?
And
Yeah.
I was at another restaurant. Yes, you'll find me in restaurants. That's what I frequent. I'm an eater. I'm not going to call myself a foodie. I'm an eater.
Yeah.
Anyway, I met some lovely man. They might give him, he just moved here and he is retired from working with the governor's detail in Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just nice meeting people and figuring out what kind of people we're bringing in this area, why they moved here, or why they decided to stay here, and what opportunities and what they see. And I like a sense of humor too. The people who can make me laugh, especially when I really laugh, I am screaming. Anybody knows that. Every day you need a good laugh because it puts everything in perspective.
Yeah.
But it's just
great.
interesting. And also just talking to people and they're interesting what they think or
Right.
how they feel we can improve our community and their ideas.
Yeah, great. Why do people move to this area?
History, I think.
Yeah.
Most people who move here are really intrigued by the history, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the number one thing I hear, or they want it to get to the rural settings and, the small, quiet town life.
Right. Yeah.
And, yeah. But I do think the history is a draw for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. Particularly if it's a time frame in history that they're very interested in. If they're not interested in 19th century America, then they're not going to, be that interested in
The
studying
history of Civil War,
here.
but then this is something interesting. And yes, it's outside of town. A lot of people, and I'll be there this weekend, is the World War II Museum. It's outside of Gettysburg.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
that's
one in Harrisburg. Is that where
it's on the Mummittsburg Road.
Oh,
Here in Gettysburg, outside of Gettysburg. I guess that's Cumberland Township.
I didn't even realize that there was one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll have to look into that.
Yeah, there's something else you can do. Yes.
Yeah.
There,
Okay.
World War II women. It's Women's History Month coming up, and they're doing a program on women in that war.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll have to look into that. I didn't realize that there was one.
Yeah, well, I hope I got that all right. But there are fascinating things going on in Gettysburg and in the surrounding area. We are in, and I also, well, I'll talk up the whole area, especially Gettysburg. I think we are in one of the most beautiful portions of Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is a lovely state.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it is history rich. There's so much that happened here or that started here. And
WKDA, what is it? KDKA, the first radio station, the first oil well, Titusville.
Yeah.
Oh, and the first cable. That was somewhere up around here.
Really?
Cable in Pennsylvania. I'm almost sure. And we're the home of Jimmy Stewart. We're the home of Gettysburg. What else is in Gettysburg?
We're also the home of Fred Rogers, Pennsylvania.
Oh my God. Do you know, wait a minute. Let me get this right. He's actually from Latrobe, Pennsylvania, which is also the home of Arnold Palmer, Rolling Rock, and that's where the Steelers have their camp.
No kidding. I
hope I got that right. Fact check me.
Yeah.
I think he's from Latrobe, and so is the golfer. I got to meet Fred Rogers briefly when I worked for the governor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Pennsylvania is very.
That's like meeting Santa Claus in my mind. Meeting Fred Rogers. That would be.
It was very brief. But anyway, what was I going to say is, Pennsylvania is very rich in history, and especially here locally. It is a wonderful place, and I think we have wonderful people and good people. And I think, as I said, with this whole thing, yeah, do we have issues? Yes. Do we have a climate of people being separate, black, white? One of the things I said, we live in Gettysburg, and let's show the nation once again how it's done, that we're going to bring unity and we will all stand together.
That's great. That's great.
Yep, I looked too, and it's
I-
outside of town. It's the Peace Light. It's symbol that memorial.
Oh,
My friend, Eternal Peace Memorial. Did I get it right, Bob? It symbolized the nation coming together after the Civil War when it was dedicated in 1938. And once again, Gettysburg can serve as a beacon to the nation, how we get it together and we all prosper.
I think that's an important thing to remember. I think that's a very important thing to remember.
It's going to be work,
Yeah, absolutely.
but work is good for the soul.
Absolutely. And that's a large part of why I'm involved with the YW, is for that work. You know, it is a lot of work, but it's work that the YW's been about for well over 100 years. And I think it'll probably, unfortunately, take another 100 to get it right. But as long as we're moving in the right direction.
Oh, I agree. But will it ever be right? It's a work in progress.
Right.
And it will be work. And as I used to say, one of the things I thought was exercise for a long time. I used to look at people and they were like, this is so hard. I said, well, if it was easy, everybody do it.
Yeah. And it would have been done already.
That's right. It's not going to be. You just have to roll up your sleeves.
Yeah.
But I am really, I'm grateful for the work you're doing. I'm grateful to the work the Y is doing. And I think it is just getting more people involved and listening to each other. And also, I'm not going to change everybody's perspective. And I hate people, but I can respect it as long as they are respecting me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm not, and everybody's, but that's people.
Yeah.
So we have to listen.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that is an excellent note to end on.
oh,
I really do.
time is flowing that, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent way to end. That, you know, we know what the work is, we know what's ahead of us, but as long as we work together and respect people and listen, I think the work can be done. And someday, you know, years and years from now, there will be two other women having this conversation and saying, remember way back when those other two people talked, you know, wow, it was different then. We've come a long way from there, you know, so that would be good to hear. Thank you so much. I know it's been a long haul for us to get together here this month, but I do appreciate that. So before Lou takes us off the air tonight, I want to make sure we tell people that our next Enlightened conversation is the 30th of March. We're kind of going to have a theme here going with the end of the month. And our topic then will be climate change. And we'll be meeting with Dr. Jennifer Pomeroy from York College and talking about climate change, what it means, and what we can do to help. Lou, any further comments from you?
The only comment I have is that this was a very inspiring conversation to me, and I hope everybody takes away from this and I'm going to quote our good mayor here, that Gettysburg should become a beacon to the nation and the world on how to get along and how to be together and how to live peacefully. And I think everybody should become that beacon.
I agree.
Good point. Good point.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. Was there any other closing comments, Lisa?
No, I think that's pretty much it for me.
Don't forget to look us up on Facebook, YWCA Hanover, and on the web, ywcahanover.org, on all social media channels. and check for our podcasts and on YouTube for our videos. Have a good night, everybody.
One more
Good
thing.
night.
Oh, one more thing.
If you're in Gettysburg, I'm at 59 East High Street. Hours vary. Stop by and say hi.
I think I will.
And I'll sit down and talk to you or make an appointment.
Okay, well, good night, listening.